Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective. This is Think Design Stories. In this series, we will be going behind the scenes on one of the most iconic laptop brands ever conceived and is still going strong. Luis Hernandez retired from Lenovo in January of 2024, and he was the leader of Lenovo's Commercial Product Solutions development team. He had an overall responsibility for the development of PC and cloud-ready devices, which included ThinkPad and education PCs, workstation PCs such as ThinkStation and the ThinkPad P series, smart office solutions such as ThinkSmart, OEM devices, and strategic innovation like the X1 Fold, the first foldable PC in the industry. He oversaw over 900 engineers across the development labs in China, Japan, and the United States. Prior to this, he was the vice president of the product group, PC, and Smart Solutions Development, responsible for developing Lenovo consumer, SMB, and commercial PCs. Luis joined Lenovo during the merge of IBM PC and Lenovo Group in 2005. During 2005 to 2016, Luis held several technical and business executive positions. In 2005, he was one of the first Lenovo leaders to integrate engineering organizations in the global supply chain. In 2010, he established ThinkPad Edge business unit, focused on small businesses while on the international assignment in Beijing. He also took Lenovo laptop SMB market share from number 4 to number 1 in a span of 2 years. Later in 2013, he became leader of the ThinkPad development team, and in 2014, he became vice president and general manager of the ThinkPad business. He had overall responsibility for the iconic ThinkPad product line for 2 years, and most notably in 2015, he led the expansion of the X1 family and celebrated the shipment of the 100th million ThinkPad. In addition to the day-to-day responsibilities of business, Luis was instrumental in driving innovation and bringing change into the organization. His career started in 1987 with IBM PC Group in Boca Raton, Florida. He worked with IBM for 18 years with numerous management and engineering positions. From 1987 to 1997, he held several engineering positions in VLSI and PC system development during the initial boom of the PC industry. From 1997 to 2005, Luis held several management positions in PC system development, PC mechanical, DSP modem, software tools, and quality for IBM PC products. Luis graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a BS in electrical engineering and received an MBA from the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University. He was awarded 5 U.S. patents, has written several technical reports and disclosures related to PC technology, and was appointed Senior Technical Staff Member in 2004. Luis is married and lives in Cary, North Carolina since 1995 with his wife Kristen and 3 daughters. He is a retired lieutenant colonel from the United States Army Reserve and a veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns. He is a board member of several charitable organizations, which include St. Michael's Honduras Sister Parish Mission, the Cramden Institute, the Cristo Rey Triangle High School, and the Emily K. Center in Durham, North Carolina. Please welcome Luis Hernandez. Earlier, you talked about the core values of ThinkPad, and, core values come from people, and they come from different groups of people. And when you have a core value, it's because it's shared within those groups. So how did the culture or the organizational structure of the teams that you worked with impact core values like the ones at ThinkPad or maybe other product lines that you've worked on?
Yeah, I think our organization is critical in the success of any product. I mean, at the end of the day, people is the most important asset that the company has. Lenovo has been wonderful of recognizing that talent is key. I'm sure other companies do it well too. But my experience on Lenovo is and when I was in IBM is that talent was the key of making sure the products will be successful. And how you build that talent, it's very important. I think Lenovo has a great advantage because the talent that is spread out around the world when we started, and it was kept that way. I mean, think about that, right? When you make a new organization, a new company, many people might think, oh, we're going to do this, transfer that. But we kept 4 teams intact. If we did transition, of course, we did transitions where it makes sense. But we left core teams that were there from the beginning in the US, in Japan, in China, that we continue to feed and we continue to nurture to be able to continue to grow the organization with the ability of keeping those core values intact. And the interaction that we had with those teams, I think was critical. For example, a big part of the portfolio teams is in the US. I mean, the US has the big knowledge of commercial enterprise, right? With the big companies and throughout the years. So understanding the customer, meeting with the customer constantly and how we solve those problems and how you take those problems and define a product with it together with development, because that's the importance, right? How you match those two to make sure that you can drive a successful product launch that is possible, right? With the right technology to solve that customer problem and the right quality. So, that interaction between development and product management, marketing, and the supply chain all together throughout the years continues to be, I think, an important factor of why this brand is so successful. Understanding the customer, understanding the technology, driving innovation that matters to the customer, and knowing that the technology is ready for it, and then driving flawless execution as we produce millions of these units and making sure that we do it with quality. All that, was wrapped up in a very nice way by Lenovo, and every team member was very important into that equation. And I think that culture allows us to continue to build ThinkPad with high quality. People recognize that, and the industry and the customer recognize that, and people obviously felt pride, and they were proud of the products that they do. So that builds a loyalty in the team. And throughout the years, the second thing that we make sure we do is how we build young talent to continue to grow in that organization, so eventually they can become the leaders in the future and understand the value proposition of ThinkPad and the core values, so we can continue to evolve it. Many people, throughout their careers, is ThinkPad continue to be relevant? Back in 2000, is ThinkPad going to be relevant in 2005, in 2010, 15? Are we modern enough? Throughout the years, I hear the same thing from a lot of people when they come in. And yes, we need to continue to evolve and be relevant, but understanding that the value proposition, those core values, are important to the customer, and we need to make sure that we continue to service them. And to do that, you have to have people in the organization to be able to understand that and continue to build it. So succession plans have been a critical part of the organization throughout the years in all the teams. And that's something that Lenovo has done, extremely well. I really appreciate YY's leadership on understanding the talent, on understanding what each group has to provide and supporting it and nurturing it. And then how we build those leaders throughout the organization so we can continue it. And then we bring professionals and young, from the industry all the time, but in a way that is well balanced, that allows to keep that core value and culture growing. And if we see something that doesn't work, we change it. But I think that that ability of keeping that culture and continue to feed it, is why I think we've been able to last, for over 31 years. And, I just left after 36 and a half years, and my successor, Sugumoto-san, which is an excellent, engineer, great technical mind, he took over the organization, commercial organization, which part of it is ThinkPad. He was a ThinkPad leader for a few years already, development-wise. So, I remember him working early on in 2000 in the first X1, later on the first X1 carbons and the X1 line, and how he continued to grow. And he delivered and he continued to grow. And that's what you want in an organization. You give opportunity to people, they deliver, and then you make sure that they grow through it. So I can tell you, organization is is part of the critical formula for ThinkPad to be able to last this many years.
Yeah, no, that makes phenomenal sense to me because, as you say, people are going to grow and change and rise up, but you want to make sure that the ideas that worked are the things that's the baton that's passed on, because if that wasn't successful, then you would probably see some pretty dramatic changes that would not be in line with those core values. And if you have a situation where you have enough dramatic change that deviates from the core values that made you successful, that's what can cause a product or an organization to fail. So if you've been doing it correctly for over 31 years, then you've probably been successful.
Yeah, and obviously I've been very fortunate that previous leaders of the organization that I worked for started this. Naito-san, Naito-san, he's the father of ThinkPad. He was a key mentor of mine and influencer on how development, should be organized, and how he drove the organizations for the mindset of listening to the customer, making sure that we do quality products. And to me, he was a key leader. So there's Peter Hortensius, Frank O'Sullivan, Johnson Jai from our team in Lenovo. There's a lot of leaders that we had that continue that legacy of ThinkPad, and the new leaders that we have in place right now. I'm confident they will continue to do that in the way that we do the succession plans is a critical tool to help us do it.
No, fantastic. So switching gears a little bit, back to your personal experiences. I understand that you did serve in the forces in the United States there. You did a couple of tours, one in Iraq, one in Afghanistan, ROTC, as you've shared earlier, and then career in reserves, but also those two deployments. So obviously a lot of life experience. How did you feel that those experiences transferred to your civilian life? Even specifically with regards to maybe your expectations on how you approached technology or problem solving or product creation, any of those things, really.
Well, I mean, the military has been part of my life for 23 years. I retired after 23 years, after the deployment that I did in Afghanistan. I think I waited 2 more and retired. And it was a big part of who I am. I admire the military tremendously. The organization that we have, the U.S. military, is, in my mind, the best organization in the world. The way that they do things on, focus, discipline, training, the way they train their soldiers from E1 all the way to officers, all the way to generals, is a continuous learning process. It never ends. And I think that's one of the key things that I learned from the military is the ability to recognize that you always have something new to learn, and you always have something to make better. And if something goes wrong, which in military a lot of things can go wrong, especially in the battlefield, how you gather that information, focus it, and be able to make decisions quicker with the information that you have available to you. To me, that's one of the key things that I got from the military is, how do I focus based on the information that I have? And because I have all this training, all this knowledge, their leadership in there trust me that with the information I'll get, I'll make the best decision available at that time for that task. So decision-making process is one of the things that I learned in the military, through all the leadership, obviously the skills that I learned from there. The other thing that I learned is collaboration, teamwork. As you can imagine, that's one of the key things about the military. You depend on the soldier next to you, especially when I went on deployment. That's when you really experience it. That collaboration, that teamwork, that pride on that group of people you're working with, really translate to what I wanted to do in my civilian job, right? And to me, that was also very powerful. Collaboration, teamwork, and how to build that culture that allows the individuals in that team understand that each one of them are important to the mission, and be able to be clear with the communication of that intent and mission, so then people can follow you. That helped me also tremendously on the civilian side. And there's no question that technology is critical in the battlefield. I remember in my first deployment to Iraq, I was still in IBM. It was before the merger. I went in 2003 and 2004, and that was right after 9/11. It was basically after that. And I remember the technology there was good. We had the PC, but it's still, communication was still difficult. Internet was starting. And when we got there, communication was not readily available because, as you can imagine, it's not easy. But people were used to it. People were used to the internet now, and people, especially, professionals. So when I was a part of the logistical team that took care of a whole base, and I was a communication officer, very important thing for technology. I remember, we had a base where we have hospitals, we have units from other parts of the world, because we were all down in Anasaria area, where in the southern base that we have down there. And I went in April 7, I remember, crossover. And the only communication that we had was 1 megabits per second on a satellite that the communication unit established. 1 megabit per second, which is not very much. And we had maybe thousands of soldiers to a hospital with doctors that are used to. So you can imagine when people are trying to access internet or email and so forth, we had to quickly react and figure out how to solve these problems quickly, right? So we can satisfy our customers. And one of the solutions is, let's set up a Microsoft Exchange server so we can control the network inside the base. We don't have to go out, because back then people were going out to the internet to do email, which was using the Army website in the cloud instead of doing it internally. So we can limit how much bandwidth was going in and out. So problem solving was a key thing that I also learned from the military. And obviously technology back then was critical for that. The other thing is the communication was limited. I remember doing, my letters at the beginning with the MRE. We ate MRE for quite a few months, and the cardboards, that's what we used to send letters back home before all the email was available. So video conferencing was not available back then.
Right.
So the email was, and heavily, and people were able to communicate through email once we established good bandwidth. Once you go in, a few months pass, then we have good food, good good places to sleep, and then eventually we'll get good internet. And we did. So I was at the beginning of the phase, so I saw the transformation. So when the second team came in, they already had internet, they already had the PX established, we already had the communication and not enough bandwidth. So I understood back then how technology was so important in the military, but obviously how we can translate that on problem solving, and how quick you need to make decisions to be able to solve these problems. So my second deployment was 5 years later, and that was in Afghanistan. In my first deployment, I went through a lot of places in Iraq, but I was most of the time in the base. In Afghanistan, I was in a small 12-man team that was advising the division of the army in Afghanistan, in Kabul area. So, they will secure the area and do obviously we did training with them, combat operations and so forth, security operations. Back when I returned 5 years into that deployment, we had good internet, we had good rooms to stay in. I remember that now Skype was working, right? Much better because we have good bandwidth. That was when I started realizing, man, camera and audio is going to be essential, because I used it. I was able to communicate back home and be able to be part of at least the life at home, because we had video conferencing like we have right now. We take it for granted now. And so I remember, it was Christmas Day, and me being able to be part of that Christmas Day morning. My kids, I have 3 girls, and my kids were opening, their gifts. We were able to use Skype for me to be able to connect with them. And then I'd say how important is communication is, and how important is this PC allowing that connection from around the world. That's when it really hit me. And video conferencing, as you know, it's essential right now. So when I got that, understanding that, it helped me working with the teams on, do we need to improve cameras, or we need to improve audios and microphones and so forth, to make the video conferencing much better. And before the pandemic hit, we in ThinkPad, we started improving camera quality, audio quality for many reasons, But the industry was ready, even though that we didn't know the pandemic was coming. The industry was ready because we had the cameras, we had the microphone, we had the Zoom, we had the Teams. And when the pandemic hit, the technology was able to deliver and help the situation much better. People were able to work remote. Not everybody, but quite a few people were able to work remote. So, all these problems out there are out there, and the key is, can you see them? Can you see the opportunity, and how you solve them using the technologies is the fun part. But military to me was it was tough, obviously, but it was very good. And it definitely was a key moment in my life, and a big part of who I am today is because of what I learned from my colleagues and the experiences that I had there.